Good morning and welcome to another episode of Capital Preview, a show where we discuss the issues that are important to Iowans. We have our state representatives and senators talk about bills that they're sponsoring up at the State House and items that are important to them and their constituents. Our guest today is Mark Smith, a Democrat from Marshalltown. And Mark, thanks for coming in this morning and talking to us.
Bill, it's my pleasure. It's nice to be here.
It's nice to see you. I'm just going to jump right into the things that you kind of want to talk about this morning, and that's the state supplemental aid for our schools. And I'll kind of just let you run with that a little bit and explain what you're...
Sure. And what's important here, Bill, is that as money is given to the local school districts from the school or from the state, and of course that's the local taxpayers' money coming back to them, it eliminates some of the need to raise property taxes. And so the legislature put into law a mechanism where 1 year out, we need to set the state supplemental aid. So this year we should be setting FY18, which should start on July 1st of 2017, that money. Unfortunately, we have not been following the law, or the House Republicans have not been following the law, and so we still do not have FY17 monies figured out, and we have not set the money for 18. That results in 76% of Iowa school districts raising property taxes, which is a more regressive tax.
Mark, the second thing is, and probably equally as important, well, these are all important issues, but the privatization of Medicaid begins April 1. So kind of tell us where we're at on that and what you think is going to happen.
Well, of course, first of all, this started as a proposal by the governor and something that he did without involvement of the legislature. It is supposed to be a cost-saving measure, and I worry that that may result in fewer services to some of Iowa's most vulnerable citizens. Medicaid currently involves 560,000 Iowans. It involves all of the medical providers we have here in our state. And it also involves a lot of families and friends of people who are receiving these services. So it's a huge deal that this is occurring, and Iowa needs to be doing it right. Now, the governor's talked about 39 other states have already done this, and so he says it's the direction that states are going. They have not gone the full way that Iowa has gone with this, and the Center for Medicaid Services said you can't start this January 1st, you will review it March 1st, and then they made the decision that it will go into place April 1st. It needs a considerable amount of oversight. I was glad to see that the Gazette is now going to follow a couple of families that are involved with these services. I think that's a great thing for people to do to make sure that it's done right.
Yeah, sounds good. It sounds like you're being very diligent about it too. It's a big deal. The change is huge and affects a lot of people. So.
It is a huge change in Iowa, and while we might ourselves not be on Medicaid, it will have an impact on all health care services here in Iowa, and therefore all of us need to watch what's going on here.
Mark, the other thing is, and I don't know that people are necessarily fixed with it, but we this is the second year of the session, and this has a 100-day session, right? And it's scheduled to get out on April the 19th. Is it going to do it?
Well, that always is the $64,000 question. I remember one year I was down in Bedford doing some Medicaid audits, and in the city hall, and there was a guy that was 77 years of age, came in to pay his gas bill. The city clerk said to him, as she said to everybody that day, they say it's going to be a bad winter. And he said, I'm 77 years of age. They've been saying that for 70 years. Most of the time they're right. And so usually we get done about this time. I have sat through the second longest session in Iowa's history. I've also sat through one of the shortest sessions in 2010. We were home by April 1st. I think it's going to take us right up to April 19th, but let's hope that we get done.
What
then.
caused you to get done early? I remember that, by the way,
Yes.
in 2010 when you guys got done,
Right.
before the session was supposed to end.
Yeah.
What happened there? You just,
You know,
everything just worked?
well,
Yeah.
what we consciously did that year, first of all, we were in difficult economic times, and it is a considerable expense to have the legislature in town and doing the
Yeah.
people's work. So we recognized that and thought that we could trim our budget by going
Oh,
home
sure.
earlier.
Yeah.
That was one thing. The other is that we focused on the policy bills during the 2009 session. And then the one thing that we always have to do every year is set the budget.
Yeah.
And so in 2010, we mainly set the budget and then got out of Dodge.
Yeah. Perfect. That's a formula that should be working all the time, right?
I would highly recommend that.
Governor Branstad has proposed the use of the school infrastructure sales tax to help with the water quality improvement. I think we all know how important, well, we know one's a hot issue, we know, and one's very important to people, water quality in Iowa, so.
Oh. Well, Bill, you referred to it as a hot issue, and I've said that this plan has had a lot of cold water thrown
Well,
on
that's,
it.
yeah, it's all in, yep, correct.
Yeah. So it's not terribly popular with people in Iowa. And here's my concerns with the governor's plan, Bill. When this tax went into place, it was a vote of the people in every school district here in Iowa. So everyone voted on it, and when and only when all counties in Iowa had this in place, then the legislature came back in and made this statewide. Now, this went to votes of the people over and over again all across Iowa, and the demand was to use this money for school infrastructure and technology. That's what was outlined in the legislation. And then when we made it statewide, we went even a step further that you rarely see in legislation, and that's the intent was put in the law. So to change this and now use this for water quality, and water quality is very important,
Right.
but to use that for water quality now, I think is going against the will of the people.
Very interesting. There are 3 different budget proposals out there this year. The amount proposed by the governor,
Yes.
the amount proposed by the Democrats, and the amount by the House Republicans.
That's
Which budget's going to be approved?
Okay, yeah. This is more than the $64,000 question.
Yeah, it is.
So let's look at this. First of all, since we always, by our Constitution, have had a requirement that we cannot deficit spend. We cannot be Washington, D.C. We don't print money, and so we have to live within our means. So there are always discussions that we need to balance Iowa's budget. Well, it always is. Second of all, in the early 90s, we put into place the 99% spending limitation so that there always is a cushion there, and we put in 3 economic pots of money that have to be full at all times here in our state. So we have very good budgeting practices that we follow. Now, back to the 99% spending limitation. The highest of those 3 budgets is the budget proposed by Governor Branstad. And I believe he falls in about 96% of the spending, followed by the Senate Democrats, who I think are at 95.5%, so slightly less than the governor's budget, and then the House Republican budget, which probably is about 92% of the spending limitation. My guess is, long answer to your
Right.
short question
Right.
there, is that it will fall somewhere between the House's number and the Senate number, but will not be at the governor's level.
Thank you, Mark. We're out of time. Great discussion this morning. We appreciate Representative Mark Smith coming in here and visiting with us this morning. Join us for another episode of Capitol Preview.